I call this East Brunswick Township Council Agenda Action Meeting, May 13, 2019. Can everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Councilman McAvoy.
Here.
Councilman Spadafino.
Here.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
Here.
Councilman Wendell.
Here.
Council President Stanley.
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as required under Chapter 231 PL 1975, specifying the time, date, location, and to the extent known, the agenda by posting a copy on the municipal bulletin board located in the main lobby, providing a copy to the Home News Tribune and Sentinel newspapers, posting a copy on the Township's website, and by filing a copy in the office of the Township Clerk in accordance with the certification which will be entered into the minutes.
Thank you. Tonight, we're going to start with a proclamation for the Mental Health Awareness Month for May 2019. This will be read by Councilwoman Sullivan.
Proclamation. Mental Health Awareness Month 2019. Whereas for more than 50 years, Mental Health America has proclaimed May as Mental Health Awareness Month. To raise awareness about mental health, combat the social stigma and discrimination associated with mental illness that often prevents people from seeking help. Promote a message of hope and recovery, and celebrate consumer strength and resilience. And whereas people with mental illness and addiction recover if given the necessary support and services in the community, yet many avoid seeking help due to stigma and fear of discrimination. And whereas the Town Council of East Brunswick recognizes the stigma associated with mental illness and addiction and acknowledges that many people remain unserved because of stigma of seeking help. This month, we call attention to this so we can bring mental illness and addiction out of the shadows and encourage treatment and support. We acknowledge that the greater public awareness about mental health and addiction recovery can change negative attitudes and behaviors. And whereas the Township of East Brunswick stands with those impacted by behavioral health challenges and pledges to increase awareness and greater understanding of these conditions, we will work to reduce stigma and discrimination and increase appropriate accessible support and services. We will strive to promote message of hope and the belief that healing and recovery are attainable, and now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Brad J. Cohen, Mayor of the Township of East Brunswick, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2019 as Mental Health Awareness Month, and call upon all citizens to participate in efforts to increase awareness and better understanding of mental illness and addiction. Given under the hand in the great sale of the Township of East Brunswick this 13th day of May, the year 2019. Mayor Brad J. Cohen.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sullivan.
Thank you.
Moving on to a public hearing portion. Can I get a motion for the following ordinance 19-10, amending Chapter 209, Vehicles and Traffic, Sections 52, Schedule 8, stop intersections of the Code of the Township of East Brunswick?
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Councilman Spadafino,
Second.
and second by Councilman Wendell. Any discussion from the public on this ordinance and this ordinance only? Seeing none. Any discussion here? Seeing none. Ms. Balsano, can you please call the roll?
Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilman Wendell.
Yes.
Council President Stanley.
Yes. Can I get a motion for the following ordinance 19-11, amending ordinances fixing grades, classifications in grades, and compensation of employees of the Township of East Brunswick, covering the Municipal Employees Association, MEA, Ordinance 18-44, and covering the Professional Managers Association, PMA, Ordinance 18-44.
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second by Councilwoman Sullivan. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this ordinance only? Seeing none, close the public portion. Seeing no-
Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilman Wendell.
Yes.
Council President Stanley.
Yes. Can I get a motion for the following ordinance, 19-12, amending Chapter 3, Administration of Government, Article 7, Utilities of the Code of the Township of East Brunswick?
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second by Councilman Spadafino. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none?
Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilman Wendell.
Yes.
Council President Stanley.
Yes. May I get a motion for the following ordinance, 19-13, fixing the salary classifications for members of the Superior Officers Association, SOA 145A, of the Township of East Brunswick?
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Councilman Wendell,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Sullivan. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this ordinance and this ordinance only? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilman Wendell.
Yes.
And Council President Stanley.
Yes. Can I get a motion for the following ordinance, 19-12, fixing the salary classification for members of the Policemen's Benevolent Association, Local 145, of the Township of East Brunswick?
It's 19-14.
1914.
Yeah.
1914, what did I say?
12.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry. 1914.
Motion to adopt. Second.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second by Councilman McAvoy. Anyone from the public wishing to speak about this ordinance? Seeing none?
Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilman Wendell.
Yes.
Council President Stanley.
Yes. Can I get a motion for the public hearing 2019 introduced budget?
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second by Councilman Spadafino.
What?
This is the public hearing.
This is the public hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyone from the public wishing to speak on the budget? Seeing none, closing the public portion. Anyone in
I
council?
don't think we don't need to vote on
Do it.
that. There's no vote.
Fine.
It's part of the resolution.
Moving on to the reports from the mayor.
Thank you, Council President. A couple of things. Belated Happy Mother's Day to everybody. I don't think we had a chance to do that at the last council meeting. Having spent so many years doing OB/GYN, I kind of think that I have somewhat to do with a lot of seeing a lot of new mothers come, and it's one of the most wonderful things to be able to do that as an individual. It's truly a blessing. So for all of those that are out there, a happy Mother's Day. There have been, and I continue to do, town halls throughout the township in an attempt to update individuals in the town on things that are going on here and open the floor for discussion. And most of the topics have been revolving around development and redevelopment here in the township. You're welcome to come to any of those town halls. Those are posted on the township website. They are also posted on the Facebook page for the township. And we will be having a little bit of a discussion this evening by the executive director for the redevelopment agency tonight on the process that's been going on so far. Suffice to say, though, that for the last several years, it's been one of our biggest concerns to make sure that blighted properties on the Route 18 corridor turn into things that the town can be proud of, things that provide a source of revenue in the form of decent rateables that the town can then use to help reduce or decrease the rate at which property taxes go up. I mean, we have a pie here, and if there's money that's coming into it from all different sources, the more that we have coming in from rateables, from businesses and from commercial and from other sources besides residential property taxes, the relief and pressure valve comes to the residents of the town who feel constantly under the gun by constantly rising property taxes. And that goal was to provide an opportunity for developers to come in and provide to the town the best possible plan that meets the needs of the township. And among the things that you'll be seeing in that plan includes mixed-use developments. You'll see a hotel, a third bus station, and parking deck here in the town that's sorely needed. There's a portion of the space that has been set aside for a public purpose, and that seems to be the part of this massive plan that's getting all of the attention. That public place, that public space, municipal space, can be used for many things. And that has not yet to be determined. It'll be determined as we have these town halls, as we hear from people that live in town. But suffice to say that that's not the entire thing that's driving this process. It's only one part, and we will, as a town, figure out what that purpose will be. And it has not been decided. Nothing's been signed on the dotted line, and it is open for discussion and for review. I encourage as many people as possible to come to those town halls. It is a great way for us to have an interchange that's meaningful and spirited and gets to the level of detail that you can't get on social media. The last thing I wanted to announce was that our Chief of Police, James Conroy, announced that he's going to be retiring effective August 1st of this year. I think we all owe him a debt of gratitude for the work that he's provided and sacrificed to this town over the last 25 years of his career. It has created a department and a township that sometimes takes for granted the safety that we enjoy in this township. But as in everything, it's time to move on, and we have a terrific group of superior officers here in the township who have all been trained, and any one of whom would be able to take over this terrific department without any hesitation. But that process is going to begin. We'll be selecting a new chief and hopefully be able to make that announcement by July 1st. There are several police officers, many of the superior ones, who have all reached the 25-year mark around the same time. We're expecting somewhere between 4 and 6 retirements this year so that everybody can feel there's no a loss in ensuring everybody's safety. We are already starting the recruiting process. Most of the officers in the township will be moving up into some newer positions, and I do not fear that anyone in the town has to worry about safety. That's always been our number one concern, and it will not change. So I look forward to that process and to being able to make an announcement come July on who that new chief will be. So with that said, thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. Going on to our town administrator?
Yes, just a couple items this evening. Just a special thank you to the tree division, who over the weekend worked diligently with our police department. That was a lot of trees blocking roadways and so on. And just a shout out to both the police department and the tree division, who were out in rather treacherous rain yesterday, and driving rain, and making sure those branches that came down and keeping our roads passable. Also, I believe there was a water main break on New Brunswick, and once again, hats off to our DPW water and sewer crews that jumped on that, and naturally support from the police department so that they could do that job safely. So just a big thank you from the administration for the job well done over the weekend and on to today. Happy to report that the Department of Planning has started their pavement management program. We're trying to do courts and roadways where it's least impacting of the school system. So we were able to tackle several locations where it wasn't hindering a bus stop or whatever, and we will continue on with 2 other courts that are scheduled for tomorrow, weather allowing. So we are able to get a lot of roads. The contractor has really dedicated a lot of time to fully to East Brunswick to continue to get the projects done. The Ruse Lane improvements from the firehouse to Winton, we had our pre-construction meeting, and we'll start in May. We'll start at that time and go over the summer, so that's important. Bicentennial Park's handball court has been paved. Once again, now we're waiting for the weather to cooperate so we can color coat and put the fencing up, and that will happen sometime this month. I'd like to come back to my report when we get to the consent agenda, so I can go over several items on the consent agenda to give you clarity, rather than doing it in my report section.
Okay.
If that's okay with you.
That's fine.
Just one question. Joe, I know several weeks ago you had the PSE&G here regard to the gas upgrades that are going on.
Right.
Do you think we can get them back, just give kind of a status report?
Absolutely.
I know that they've done a lot of work and the roads are pretty treacherous over in those neighborhoods, and I'd just like to get some updates, because I know a lot of my neighbors are asking me what's going on.
Yeah, part of that process is when they do the initial work, they lay the lines and make those initial connections. They do a temporary patch, then they got to let it settle and stuff like that. But if there's certainly any areas where they have concern, all the people that lived in those areas received communications and cards. They can just call it in directly,
Right.
and they'll make sure any of those trenches that became treacherous are repaired, are taken care of. And I'll be more than happy to get Mr. Lucchese,
Yeah, maybe the next meeting
probably
we get a
not
status update.
next Monday's
Right.
meeting, but probably the meeting after that.
Perfect.
I'll communicate with them.
I just
and-
have a lot of people asking me, when the paving's going to be done, how,
Sure.
what the time frame is, and as they've had several weeks now to get started, I think they can see
Yes,
maybe more clearly to the end, and we can give some status updates.
absolutely. I'll schedule that for sometime in June. I know,
Great.
once again, they're holding off on a lot of the roads that would interfere with the school system, so it's probably timely for them to even give you an update on that.
Thank you, Joe. Any report from our Director of Law?
None this week, Council President.
Thank you. Anything from the Clerk's Office?
No.
Any reports from our Council Committee, Board? Councilwoman Sullivan?
Okay, first, I want to remind people that the police rodeo, the rain date, which will be May 19th from 3 to 6 o'clock, it's bike safety. May 20th, there's a job fair at the Recreation Building. They're looking for lifeguards over 18. Lifeguards, camp counselors must be age 18 and older. May 26th, there's going to be a Memorial Day observance starting at 1 o'clock at the Veterans Memorial. And also, pertaining to that, they, Department of Recreation is selling flags. It's called the Field of Flags, and it's a 3-foot by 5-foot American flag, and you could have a personalized message attached to the pole. It will fly from Memorial Day to Flag Day at the Veterans Park. The cost is $40. And for further information, you can visit eastbrunswick.org/Field of Flags. Also, the Drug Alliance on May 29th at Memorial School, the DEA agent Tim McMahon will be presenting, and it's supported by our own police department. It's an event that starts at 6:30. The refreshments will be included, and parents can walk through a simulated bedroom to find out where children can hide and hide drugs or different places, and it's very interesting. If you haven't done it, I suggest you do it. There'll be a discussion to follow. Anyone entering must be 21 years or older, and my office hours are tomorrow from 4 to 6.
Thank you, Councilman Sullivan. Anyone else?
On behalf of redevelopment,
Yeah, I'm gonna-
I'll defer to our
Okay.
executive director.
At this time, I want to call up to the dais our Executive Director for the East Brunswick Redevelopment Agency, Michael Hughes. At the request of council, several council members, we wanted to get a report from the Redevelopment Agency as to the status of what's going on in town. So we decided to add this report on once a month so the public as well as council is aware of what's going on at the Redevelopment Agency.
Sure. Council President and members of council, thank you for the invitation to have me out here. Redeveloping Route 18 is a priority of this administration and this governing body, as I think the mayor spoke to in his report earlier tonight. So I appreciate the time and the invitation to speak here a little bit about the redevelopment process here in East Brunswick, and especially where we are today. And where we've come from inception of the agency, and then over the course of the last few months where there's been really some momentum and positive movement on the redevelopment front. I'll let Mr. Criscolo get the PowerPoint up on the...
I thought this was for the exec section.
No, this is for you.
Okay.
So while he's getting that up, I'll give you a sense of how we got here to where we are right now in redevelopment. So redevelopment was studied in East Brunswick, as I'm sure most of you know, but for members of the general public who are listening here, it was initially studied by the Township Council and the then mayor in 2015. We had engaged professionals in commercial real estate, planners, redevelopment professionals, and appraisers to take a look at the Route 18 corridor, specifically the north end of Route 18, where we had seen an increase in vacancy, blighted properties, and really land that wasn't being used to its best and highest use over there. So we designated as a township, the council and the mayor, the area in need of redevelopment without condemnation back in 2015. At that point, we had gone through the redevelopment process somewhat. We had formed an advisory committee under then Mayor McAvoy, and then with the new mayor taking over in 2017, Mayor Cohen, we had started a new course with some renewed momentum there. And from there, we created, with an act of council, a redevelopment agency to oversee and to handle the redevelopment process here in East Brunswick. And in a later slide, I'll go over what exactly the redevelopment agency's role is in all of this. In 2017 as well, once we had brought up the redevelopment agency, we had passed an ordinance here by the Township Council level that not only designated those areas in need of redevelopment, but we also included the right of condemnation in there as well. And then in 2018, the Township Council and the Planning Board had formed a redevelopment plan that was crafted with the help of DMR architects, our redevelopment planners, and with input from the community at public meetings and our professionals. We'll just let this get focused in, and we're on slide 3 at this point. I think that's good. So this gives you a sense of what I just said, and here's where we are now. So the redevelopment plan was approved by the Township Council and the Planning Board. Public open houses were held at the Community Arts Center, as well as a public meeting that was held for all the members of the township committees at the Senior Center to go over redevelopment and to really lay out our ethos and vision for what a redevelopment plan on Route 18 was ultimately going to look like. In fall of 2018, RFPs were issued for Area 2A and 3A, which commonly known as the Loman's Plaza, and then the Burger piece of property, which is where the Gap, Office Depot, Pearl Vision was at some point back in the day. There was a meeting for interested bidders that were interested in areas 2A and 3A. That meeting was held at the Community Arts Center in October of 2018. Ultimately, those RFPs were submitted to the township for review at the end of December in 2018, which led us in the beginning of 2019 to review the proposals and the developers that had submitted, as well as finally in the late March when we designated a conditional redeveloper for Area 2A and 3A. And we'll get into the difference between a conditional redeveloper and one that has a final redevelopment agreement signed. Next slide.
Could you just tell, just tell, a lot of people don't know what an RFP is. Could you just say
Sure,
that?
that's a request for proposal from the fair and open process and the local public contracts law. A municipality, if they're going out for any specific type of service, they'll need to solicit an RFP, especially when the value is as great as it is. I think the threshold 17.5 unless that's been changed. So you have to go through an RFP, a fair and open process where those RFPs are evaluated and then selected from there.
Thank you.
So with respect to the role in the redevelopment process, I think this is a common question we get up here is there's a lot of layers here, and what is the role specifically of each? There's 3 official recognized groups here in East Brunswick that have a hand in the redevelopment process. With as critical of a endeavor as redevelopment is, you want to have as many qualified individuals be able to weigh in and provide input, but you want a clear scope and framework that each of them are able to operate within. And there you have all next to each other, the council, the redevelopment agency, and the redevelopment advisory committee. And like I said, each has a unique role and a unique scope in this process. Next slide. We'll start with the Township Council. This is the only group of the 3 that has the ability to set policy. The 5 of you who are elected behind the dais have that unique capability and are elected and answerable to the voters. This is the legislative branch of township government. You ultimately have the final say in passing redevelopment plans as have been passed previously for areas that the redevelopment agency covers. You can designate additional redevelopment areas. You have the sole authority to negotiate and enact pilot or payment in lieu of tax agreements where applicable. And then you also pass the resolution that appoints members to both the redevelopment agency and the redevelopment advisory committee at your reorganization meeting each year. Next is the redevelopment agency. We are charged with implementing the policy that is set by Township Council. We operate in a very narrow scope. We are only tasked with looking at the areas that are designated in need of redevelopment. And myself as the executive director, I'm essentially the project manager for that effort. We take a look at the redevelopment plan that was passed by the Township Council and the Planning Board and do our best to put that plan from its inception on paper and put it into physical practice in the redevelopment areas on Route 18. We hold open public meetings once every 2 weeks in this same room. The fees to professionals largely come from escrows from redevelopers when dealing with particular projects. And there's 7 members, all with a different expertise and stake in the community. We have 7 true professionals who bring a unique perspective and background to the table at redevelopment agency meetings and whose input is really thoughtful and valued throughout the process. And it's led by myself as the executive director of the agency. Lastly, and the third piece of this puzzle is the Redevelopment Advisory Committee. And this is an advisory made up of East Brunswick residents. Last I checked, there's 15 or 20 members who can come and go in each meeting as they want. You know, if they can't make a meeting, that's okay. But these are really interactive meetings. We workshop various ideas when it comes to the aesthetics, community engagement, public uses and purpose that they'd like to see in the redevelopment area. And they're charged with commenting on and steering the process. This is a widely scoped group that focuses on stakeholder engagement and public involvement. This is a really key body to take the pulse of the community. These are people who are not in the development, redevelopment, or real estate industry. These are, by and large, just interested residents who have a stake in what's going on in East Brunswick and want to see Route 18 revitalized. So now that we've gone over kind of the framework that we operate in and kind of the scope and the mission of each of these bodies, I'll take a moment here to update you on some news going on in each of the redevelopment areas. 110 Tice's Lane, the old Hostess Wonder Bread factory. The conditional redeveloper was designated for that site in late December of 2018. That site is being developed in accordance with the redevelopment plan. Those site plans at this point, now that we have a conditional redeveloper designated, are pretty close to submission to the planning board. That's a mixed-use space, apartments, some townhomes, there's some ground-level retail, especially when it comes to Tice's Lane. And we're currently negotiating the final redevelopment agreement with Garden Homes, who's the conditional redeveloper of that property. Some of the items we're negotiating right now are public uses and purposes within that site, roadway and signal improvements to Tice's Lane, to the traffic light where Renee Road hits Tice's and the entrance to the old Hostess Wonder Bread factory is. Next slide. Other news is that all the Cs have vacated that property. It's completely vacant. You'll see that the facility is fenced while the redeveloper goes in and we have the utilities disconnected. Some of the abatement is in process for some of the materials that were found on site. I think there was an old pharmaceutical company that was actually storing some medications in there and manufacturing some at some point. And the demolition contract has been awarded by the developer to begin demolition. Hopefully with the passage of a site plan to the planning board where it will come for a hearing, we would expect that demolition on that property will start at some time in the late summer or early fall. I'm going to choose to under-promise and over-deliver, hopefully, on that.
Under-promise it a lot.
Under-promise a lot.
I'm expecting it starts in June.
I would like it to start in June too, and then I'll come back here and say, hey, I beat it by 3 months. 39 Edgeboro. So that's a different area that was designated in need of redevelopment here by the council and the planning board. Not on the north side of Route 18, but we are open for business and folks who want to have a redevelopment project here in East Brunswick and invest money. We're always looking to take a look at how we can make the process a little more streamlined and how we can get more readables here in the township. So that was an area, like I said, that was designated by council and planning board. The planning board has already approved their site plan and layout. That's going to be light industrial, 21st century warehousing with a facility that is designed for the future, that's not outmoded and outdated like some other warehouse facilities in town. We want to make this something that competes with the places over by 8A and Exit 10. The redevelopers agreement is nearly complete on that, and you'll be receiving some news on that relatively shortly that I can't divulge yet. And they have an aggressive construction schedule. Upon passage of that redevelopers agreement, they expect to take shovels into the ground ASAP. That is a project that they're very, very excited about. And that's a rendering there. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see there's a small picture there. I've got it in a bigger form. This is what it's ultimately going to look like. This was presented to the planning board for that warehouse space at 39 Edgeboro Road. Next slide. Did you have a question? Oh. So next, and the biggest chunk and what takes up, I think, a lot of the oxygen in the room is what's going on at areas 2A and 3A. So that's Loman's and the Gap Shopping Plaza. Over the course of the last 4.5 months since I've taken this role as executive director of the redevelopment agency, we've reviewed all of the submissions to the RFPs. We've evaluated them over the course of 2 months with the entire group of the redevelopment agency, digging into everything of ability to finance, consistency and adherence to the redevelopment plan, timeline, the ability to pay, and the experience and expertise in places that they've done redevelopment projects to this size and scope before. So in late March of 2019, the agency had selected a conditional redeveloper for that property. The conditional designation provides us a time frame to exclusively negotiate with this redeveloper on redeveloper and financial agreements with the township. Normally that process is much longer, but we know the priority of redevelopment here in East Brunswick, and I think the overall impatience, I think, which is very warranted to get things done. So with that, we have 90 to 100 days for a complex deal such as this for us to make some concrete movement and hopefully have something signed in hand on a redeveloper's agreement for that. And in the process, we've also started the appraisals of all the properties that are in that redevelopment zone that that developer would need to acquire. Next slide. Some components of the selected conditional redeveloper's proposal. It adheres to the goals and themes from the redevelopment plan: walkable, connected communities, mixed use in every sense of the word, not only residential and commercial, but in terms of ages that we're looking to attract and purpose of the redevelopment project as well. Live, work, play. We want to have experiential attractions to this site. There's a hotel that will be located in the area. There's a transit center and a parking garage with additional thought given to an autonomous and connected vehicle future, with the ability to retrofit parking spaces, electric vehicle charging stations, and ultimately, preparing for the 21st and 22nd century. Traffic flow and Route 18 congestions. The redeveloper has some innovative solutions on some traffic issues for Route 18 that he wishes to address, hopefully, as part of this project. And a main goal for us is just to improve the current condition on Route 18. There's a number of right-hand 90-degree turns in the right lane of Route 18 that cause congestion, that cause backups in the traffic flow. Ideally, if you're going to eliminate some, if not all, of those 90-degree turns for ingress and egress of those properties, you won't solve the congestion problem on Route 18, but you'll certainly be able to take concrete steps forward towards making it a little bit better. And then connectivity. We want to have something that, in both aesthetic and purpose, has a sense of connectivity all throughout Route 18, and we've actually begun speaking to other property owners who wish to upgrade their sites to mirror the facades and the aesthetic that the redeveloper is going to choose for that area to make it all one cohesive piece when you enter into East Brunswick. Additional items that they're trying to include in there, experiential retail, in addition, upscale food, a grocer, some other, experiential retail spaces that are not just the mom and pop stores, but attractions, really destination retail that people are going to want to travel to. There is going to be a public space and usage, and that is for the township at a policy-making level to decide what that may be. That could be anything from a dog park to office space to anything in between, a co-working space. There's a number of ideas that people have that really is not the redevelopment agency's scope to come up with what that's going to be. And then, so there's a number of interesting restaurant concepts that are going to be on this site. The developer has an ability and a track record of attracting tenants. He has similar projects where he's been able to attract the level and the specificity of retail that we're looking for here. And he has an ability to tie in existing uses on the site and in the surrounding locations into the overall look of the redeveloped area, so it doesn't look just plopped out of thin air, so it has some cohesion with the rest of Route 18 as well. Next steps, what you can expect in the future to hear from me about. A 39 Edgeboro redeveloper and financial agreement. That's going to be coming down the pike much sooner than later, and we'll be speaking to you about that. Groundbreaking and construction is going to be to follow. They have a very aggressive construction schedule, so I would expect to see movement on that, like I said, very, very soon after that redeveloper and financial agreement are signed. 110 Tices is hoping to go to the planning board in the next, I'm going to say 35 to 40 days with a site plan that will be submitted for planning board approval. We anticipate at that point to begin negotiations on a redeveloper and financial agreement with 110 Tices. We plan on completing negotiations, like I said, in the time frame mentioned before, for Area 2A and 3A. We expect negotiations to begin sooner than later between the developer and property owners in Areas 2A and 3A. And we also will continue to hold open public meetings with in conjunction with the mayor and the administration to strengthen our public involvement and stakeholder engagement. With that, I will open it up to questions from council members on anything I have discussed or have not discussed.
Anyone on council have questions?
Yeah, I do. Mr. Hughes, when do you think the developer for Lohman's and Berger property is going to, shall we say, sign on the dot? That's a. There's no longer any dotted lines, solid lines. When do you think he's going to sign on the solid line? And then that would send a message to the community that it's ready to move forward. And I guess with that signature, he's going to present a plan that everyone is going to be able to see.
Yes, so I would expect, like I said in the timeline, at some point within the next 90 to 120 days. It's a very complex deal when you're dealing with the amount of properties to acquire and the amount of capital to do that. I have no question in his financial ability to do so, but with the amount of property acquisition that are required and with as large of a tract of land areas 2A and 3A are, when you're talking all the way up bordering on Ruth Street, going all the way down to Lake Avenue, is fairly large and complex. We are working as quick as possible. I would always like everything done yesterday. I think the conditional redeveloper designation was a big step forward in selecting one developer to exclusively negotiate with. So the short answer is I would say within the next 90 to 150 days, and I hope to beat that considerably.
When the, however you want to call it, conditional developer or developer was named, the River Development Equities Group,
That's correct.
when they were named, wasn't it from that point forward that it was a 90-day window for this developer to come on board?
It's a 90-day window with the expectation of, with good faith negotiations, we'll be able to extend that. From all the professionals that are involved, 90 days is extremely aggressive. 90 days, it took all of the lawyers for both sides to really come up with 39 Edgeboro, which is one piece of property. There's no property acquisition required for that, and it's a fairly boilerplate redevelopers agreement with everything that's tied in to areas 2A and 3A. When you consider the fact that one of the property owners had contested the designation, one of them did not. There are a number of individual property owners within that space. It's not just one or two. There's several. And also combined with the fact of just the amount of money that's at play. I mean, this is a hundreds of $1 million project. I mean, this is a very large and complex agreement. So I think both sides want to take their time with it. We are pushing constantly to have meetings and get it done sooner. We meet weekly to discuss the progress of it. I'm going to be meeting on Friday with them again to go over action items and button up other topics. A lot of the low-hanging fruit's going to be done well within that 90-day window. Some of the more complex financial calculations may take a little bit longer, but that's nibbling around the edges. We're also considering the ability to bifurcate some parts of the redevelopers agreement out so we can sign a redevelopers agreement and leave some of the more complex issues off to the side for now, and we can get started on some of the stuff we agree on just to show some movement and to gain some steam on that front.
And when you vetted the background of River Development Equities, did you find that they had projects similar in size and scope to what's going on in East Brunswick, so that you could say, whoa, they've done this and they've done this?
We did. The ability to perform the work was a criteria for all the redevelopment agency members. I don't make a recommendation. That is for the redevelopment agency members. When they ask me to weigh in, I will, but that's really a vote that they take on their own after having looked at all the proposals. I know that one of the key pieces that redevelopment agency members we're looking for is a real standout project and something that's able to really draw people to the north end of Route 18, something that's not cookie cutter, and the ability to deliver that and something a little outside the box that's going to be really spectacular for East Brunswick was part of their criteria, and they had felt that River had the most ambitious plan, I believe, out of all of them, without speaking.
Are you familiar with their project called the Metropolitan in Red Bank?
I am.
Are you familiar with the River Club in Bogota?
I am.
So then and that answers that. As long as you've vetted that and you're comfortable with, the direction that we're going, because it wasn't as if you had, let's just 50 developers. You had a couple of developers, and when you chose this one, so you had to do your background, you had to do your homework on this. Okay. And let's just move over to 110 Tice's. The application is not in yet.
It is not.
And you expect that? What do you think?
I would expect that within the month. I would expect them on a planning board agenda without knowing their meeting dates off the top of my head. I would expect them on a June planning board agenda.
And so once that application goes in, and whether the planning board approves it or not, we're going full steam ahead at that point in time.
Assuming that the planning board, I don't want to speak out of turn without them approving something.
So let's
but
say
yes.
they do approve it, so
That's
the application date is key for movement on 110 Tice's.
For sure, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Hughes.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike, for your time. Now, at this time, we're moving on to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come up to the podium, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 5 minutes, and address all comments to the chair, please.
Hello, Robert Zielinski, President of the East Brunswick Superior Officers Association.
Anthony DeSantis, President of the PBA.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for giving us some time today. Purpose for coming here tonight is to, Anthony and I want to extend our appreciation with resolving both the union contracts. Thank you for the lines of communications that was created during this process. It was a pleasure meeting and having discussion with every member of the council. Mr. Crusullo, Mayor Cohen, thanks for all your time at the table. Mayor Cohen, both units were very appreciative of the interest you showed and the time you spent with us to resolve our contract once you realized the problem existed. Moving forward, we have these new lines of communications formed and look forward to working with each and every one of you in the future in any capacity. So thank you again and appreciate all your efforts. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the great job you do for the Township of East Brunswick.
We appreciate it. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Good evening.
Troy Bailey, 14 Sadowski Street. Have a couple questions tonight. First, kind of set just for the redevelopment. I was wondering if there's any kind of decision yet on purchasing properties in the redevelopment area yet? Is there?
No decisions have been made yet on purchasing properties, but if we were in those discussions, we wouldn't talk about it anyway.
Okay, so the timeline wouldn't be available?
Right.
Okay. Number two, does the redevelopment agency end at the redevelopment plan being executed, or does it just kind of continue until existence because it's on?
It's created by statute and by ordinance, so it continues until the council decides to do away with it.
Okay.
Just by way of example, there's a redevelopment agency in Saraville that I represent that's been going on for over 20 years.
Okay. Kind of to go along with that, I was just kind of wondering, Edgeboro Road was added to the redevelopment plan back in November, I think. It's outside the initial redevelopment plan. I'm just wondering why that's needing a pilot, considering for pilot or anything like that, or even why it's within the redevelopment agency. Just kind of confusing the distance to the other properties, why that's being considered.
The governing body made a decision to recommend to the planning board looking at a whole slew of properties on the other side of Route 18. They already felt that they had a good start on the southbound side of Route 18, so they extended the study area to include the hotels along Old Bridge Turnpike, the old PNC Bank building, and then further down at Edgeboro Road, just as part of the natural extension of the redevelopment process. You'll probably see in a few years, once these take off, that there'll be other areas further down that are considered for review in need of redevelopment.
And that was within the original kind of redevelop, like don't know the exact terminology for it, but kind of determining what the redevelopment plan would be like the...
Each area is done individually.
Okay.
So you've had 2A, 3, there are other sections. You have the north side of Route 18 and Edgeboro, and there will be other ones further down the highway that'll be considered in the future.
Okay. Why were the two lots across from the redevelopment plan not considered in between Speedway and Motel 6? It's just like, I think one used to be a rent-a-car place, but it's like two random dirt lots right there right now. I was wondering why that wasn't considered for the plan.
Jim?
The original interest was to look at Edgeboro Road
Okay.
and the properties that fronted on Edgeboro Road.
Oh.
1 minute.
Okay. When is the next time the township is going to reevaluate our master plan? Have we spoken about that yet, or?
It was,
Just recently.
it was most recently done, I think, in 2015, so you've got a number of years, probably not another 5 or 6 years before it needs to be reevaluated again.
So we won't be reevaluating it earlier, because we did one in 2011, or, yeah, 2011.
Yeah, there's an outside requirement of when you have to do it, but you can always do it shorter.
Okay. And just a general question, I have a lot more time for this, but I was speaking to someone who works at 7-Eleven, and he mentioned to me that he's having problems finding a place to live. He mentioned to me he only makes about $25,000 a year, and I was just wondering, I couldn't think of a place for him to live in his township, sadly, so I just wanted to pose that question to you. Where would someone in this township live that makes that amount of money?
I would contact the East Brunswick Housing Corporation, which is a nonprofit housing corporation that is subsidized by the, some of our affordable housing funds, so.
Yeah. Whenever a non-residential development is built in town, by state statute, it has to contribute to what they call a non-residential development fund. Those fees are used by the Affordable Housing Corporation of the township to help provide affordable housing. So give them a call. We're here in the municipal building.
The housing authority?
Housing Corporation.
Amy?
Yes, Amy.
Amy Denholtz.
Amy, you can actually see Amy.
Amy's right back there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Before you leave, Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Council President, could
Yes.
we extend the time for Mr. Bailey if he, make sure he completes his questions?
How many,
I can, just one more question real quick.
Thank you.
This one I kind of skipped over. The town council meetings, the videos get uploaded. I understand it takes some time to upload them and everything. The thing is, the last time they were uploaded was March 11th, so I was kind of wondering what the time frame is to get the videos of the town council meetings uploaded.
they get up the next day?
Feel like the next day or the
Yeah.
following day.
It's weird. I'll check again.
We'll ask the guys behind the
Yeah.
booth. Hang on.
Yeah, I gotta check my computer because they're showing March 11th as the last updated video.
Just talk to the man behind the screen.
The man behind the curtain.
Dave is the manager of that, and said that they try the next day. The longest is usually 2 days after the council meeting. They're up on this system.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Mr. Wong?
Thank you, Council President Stanley. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge Councilwoman Sullivan's comments regarding the proclamation earlier. I lost my brother to a heroin OD back in 1991, and I myself, along with many other people, have suffered from chronic depression. So I think it's important that people realize that mental health and addiction are extremely significant issues. Council President, I made a statement this evening, which I'll just summarize for the sake of brevity and making points. There's a tremendous amount of concern about the on-the-record proposals to move various elements of the Civic Center to the Route 18 development. If you look at the Wonder Bread site, you look at 2A and 3A and the 39 Edgeboro Road, that's going to generate at least, just the residential aspects, at least 1,400 cars per day that will be in those units, in addition to the hundreds of trucks. Already the traffic up there is a nightmare. It's truly a nightmare, let alone that it's tucked away in a corner of the very widespread 23-mile square township that we have here in East Brunswick. So I think it behooves everybody to look at facts, do cost-benefit analysis, traffic studies, best practices. I understand that there's a vision for Route 18, and I think most people share in the vision of redeveloping Route 18 from its current blighted condition. I don't think there's a factual basis that would support moving any of the municipal services here at Civic Center, with the possible exception of a police substation, in terms of municipal services. Back in the 1960s, I knew Mayor Alec Borman. My folks were very close friends with him. Mayor Borman had said that East Brunswick is a progressive community, and it is a progressive community, and we're very proud of that tradition. The progressive community that Alec Borman and Jim Bornheimer and others was to create this diverse, far-flung community and create a town center, the heart of the township. And that's what they did. That's what they did. We had a police station up on Route 18. We had municipal services up on Route 18. They looked forward and said, no, we have a very broad community, and we should create something that's in the middle of our township that becomes the town center. So to even consider making the town center, the civic center of East Brunswick, up in heavily congested, very highly dense developed Route 18, right at Exit 9 and Ruth Street, just flies in the face of any factual, reasonable, rational planning process. So we will continue to make sure that the voices of the majority of those who love East Brunswick are heard, and that vision is also based in reality. Thank you so much.
Did he
Thank you, Mr.
name
Moore.
and-
Yeah.
Just for the record, name and address and all that?
Yeah,
for the record?
I'm sorry. Very. Councilman Wendell. Richard Walling, 33 Deerbrook Boulevard, former member of the Zoning Board, Planning Board, Open Space Committee, Affordable Housing Corporation, Historic Preservation Commission, Environmental Commission, and proud member of the Township Council. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Address, Rich?
Address? Pardon me? Your address?
Oh, I'm sorry, 33 Deerbrook Boulevard, North Brunswick.
North Brunswick.
Right.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Thank you. Seeing no one else, I will close the public portion. Moving on to the consent agenda. At this time, I ask, is there any items that the council wishes to?
Council President, if you would, I asked you in my portion, like to just explain
sure.
several of them now, so it may avoid separating items on the agenda.
Sure, go ahead.
Item A is the new chipper for the tree division. As I stated earlier today, we had a treacherous weekend with tree branches falling, and our chipper unit is quite old. They take a beating, and it's time to get a new one, so that's the first item. Item B, C, D, and E come from the request of a group, our Sustainable New Jersey team, our Green team, our Environmental Commission, and alike. So those particular 4 items are in support of our Sustainable New Jersey certification, our recertification, and we asked for you to vote on those affirmatively so we can continue to upgrade our status as far as Sustainable New Jersey certifications with the state of New Jersey. Item H is a 3-year contract for long-term disability insurance for all township employees, which we are required to have. And I'd like to thank our CFO and purchasing agent, certified purchasing agent, that she negotiated the same rate as the prior years for the next 3 years. So I'd like to thank our CFO for her hard work on that. Item I is to reject proposals for providing a basic life support, emergency medical service response, and transportation system. After the East Brunswick Rescue Squad went out of business, we took a look at the document and we realized that there needs to be a change in the specification because they would no longer be able to be the overflow particular squad. So under New Jersey purchasing laws, whenever there's a substantial change in the specifications, we have to reject all the bids, all the proposals, and go out with that changed bid package. I've worked with the police department and our certified purchasing agent, Angel, to effectuate those changes, and we anticipate advertisement within the next few days to get that back out on the street to sustain the changes in the requirement that was required because of actions that were taken. Yes, sir.
But we still, there's no interruption in service.
No interruption to
everything
service.
continues,
Everything
and
continues, right.
Atlantic will continue to serve until
That
we
is
get a
correct.
new contract.
That is correct, sir. The other item there, item J, I wanted to mention this was a shared service agreement with the school board, and I also like to thank several members of the Township Council that helped facilitate this. Councilman McAvoy played a large role with this, and this is when the school system needs a particular service that the township could help them with. We would be able to have a reciprocal agreement back and forth and to charge each other for the cost of the service. This will thereby save the school system and the township money from going to outside agencies. Particular items that you may think of is if storm drains are clogged or sewer pipes are clogged on the school system's property, they could actually call our water and sewer division, and they could possibly go to the site, determine what the problem is, rather quickly responding rather than going to a contractor, and possibly rectifying the problem and in a much cheaper fashion. We made this a reciprocal agreement in case there's items that the school systems have that we would like to use, and it would work in the opposite. And I would like to thank Councilman McAvoy for helping out on that with us. Item L was the authorization to obtain a grant from the New Jersey Historic Trust Fund. This is for the museum down in the historic section. The requirement of the grant requires to have a resolution authorizing the application from the governing body to the New Jersey Historic Trust Fund. And that's all I have for you this evening, sir, unless there's any other thing else you'd like me to explain.
Thank you. Seeing that he explained all these items, is there any questions from council regarding any of these items that was discussed by our administrator?
Well, I would just like to thank Mr. Criscolo for those words of praise, but what's really going on is the progressive direction of Mayor Cohn, who has allowed us to dive into shared services across the board so that we're accountable to the electorate who put us up here in an effort to save money wherever we can. You know my background, whether it was saving 59 cents when I was on the Board of Education, and my wife sort of yelled at me a little bit, but I said sort of like, I'm sorry, but this is what we're going to do. And so with regard to Resolution 16600, it is, once again, the vision and leadership of Dr. Cohen, who has allowed us to work wherever we can with the shared services agreements, and you're going to be seeing some more with the Board of Education so that we don't have to duplicate things, so that we don't have to waste our money. It's something that's always been talked about, and it's only now that we're finally getting things done. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else on council? Okay. Seeing none, can I get a motion for the following agenda items A through O?
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second by Councilman Spadafino.
Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilman Wendell.
Yes.
Council President Stanley.
Yes. Moving on to an ordinance requiring a public hearing date of June 10th, 2019. Can I get a motion for the following ordinance 19-15, authorizing amendment to lease agreement between the Township of East Brunswick and the East Brunswick Historical Society as tenant with regard to Block 58.02, Lot 37 on Milltown Road in the Township of East Brunswick?
Motion approved.
Motion by Councilman Wendell,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Sullivan.
Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilman Wendell.
Yes.
Council President Stanley.
Yes. May I get a motion for the ordinance 19-16, bond ordinance 19-16, providing for various water utility improvements by and in the Township of East Brunswick in the County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, appropriating $3 million therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $3 million in bonds and notes to finance the cost thereof.
Motion approved.
Motion by Councilman Wendell. Second.
Second with a question.
Second by Councilman McAvoy.
Those
Councilman
dollar
McAvoy.
and cent signs, the red flag.
As most people know, the state is engaged in redesigning Route 18 to take care of drainage issues that we have along the highway. They need a tremendous amount of land acquisitions and easements. At that particular time, we are lucky that Mr. Losek in the DPW staff has been talking about some issues that we have had with the water line on Route 18, and he's done a lot of research on that. And everybody knows if there's a water main break on Route 18, basically, it requires basically shutting down 2 lanes on Route 18 and so on. In his fact-finding, we found out the water line on Route 18 was constructed in 1937. The design of the highway is running into major conflicts with where the water pipe is and where they have to sink their water pipe, their drainage system. So the state of New Jersey has requested that we work with them, and they are willing to pay for half of the relocation of this water line down Route 18. To me, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I'd like to thank Mr. Kipp and Mr. Losak for working with the state of New Jersey on this and their design team. This is sorely needed when you think of a pipe that was installed in 1937. There's issues that some of the shutoff valves just simply won't turn anymore. They're old and they're on or in one of the busiest highways in the state. So this gives us the opportunity for a cash-sharing agreement with the New Jersey DOT, including their Section 20 charges for the design and so on. So this is a fantastic opportunity for the township to get that new water line down Route 18 and save a lot of problems into the future. To me, I just ask you to move ahead with this bond. I'd like to thank Angel as well for getting this on the agenda, because the state is really looking for an answer if we're willing to do this cost share with them in order to do this change, and it's a great opportunity for the township. Thank you.
I still have to ask.
Go ahead.
Because it was a note that I made at home. Instead of bonding the money, there's no capital money left?
Well, it will be a capital project that we'll bond for. It certainly
Okay.
will be paid for by the water utility out of the water rates. And this project probably won't have a shovel in the ground for another couple of years. So we'll be able to come back to you when we're actually going out for permanent financing. But they require us to have the ability to finance in place.
Thank you.
Before they'll continue with their design. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Please.
Angel Albanese, Chief Financial Officer for the Township of East Brunswick. I noticed that in the summarization of the agenda description, it says 2019 budget approval. Budget was already approved. This is the adoption. In the detailed packet that you have, I didn't bring that with me, but I know that the resolution that was sent to the clerk says budget adoption. So I just want to make sure that that's clear for the record. Budget adoption.
Thank you. And that's actually a good segue. You may have seen me speaking with Joe and Joe speaking with Angel. I'd like to pull that resolution 16597 and vote on it separately under new
Just vote it
business.
separately.
Joe and I were debating whether we have to vote it as part of the agenda or separate, so we might as well do it both ways just
Put
to
it
be
on new
safe.
business.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
adoption.
Do you want to call the roll, please? Any other questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Please call the roll.
Okay. Okay, Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilman Wendell.
Yes.
Council President Stanley.
Yes. Moving on to the new business. Can I get a motion for item 16597, the 2019 budget adoption?
Motion approved.
Motion by Councilman Wendell,
Second.
second by Councilman Spadafino. Please call the roll.
Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilman Wendell.
Yes.
Council President Stanley.
Yes. Moving on to the good of the cause. Anyone on council have anything for the good of the cause?
All right. I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Seeing none?
There's a comment from the.
The public portion.
The public portion is closed, I'm sorry. Public portion is closed. I'm not gonna deviate from.
I know you will.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
You have a,
Oh, I'm
good
sorry.
question, go ahead.
Sorry.
I just wanted to close by publicly thanking our new CFO, Angel Albanese. It's her first budget here for the township. And I think it was a big role to fill and big shoes to fill from New Neely, and she did a great job. We also, now that we have our contracts finally all done, we're going to start the process we've long wanted to do, which is to actually look at the township's budget over a 3 to 4 year horizon. So this way we have a lot more control and the ability to get a sense of where we're going to be as opposed to what we've been doing, which is a 1 year at a time budget. So I congratulate you. Thank you for being part of our team. And you're a real East Brunswickite now.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to get a motion to go into closed session for contract negotiations for 39 Edgeboro Road. And just a note, no action will be taken after the closed session.
Motion approved.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second by Councilman McAvoy. Thank you all. Have a good night.